Firstly, thank you, Leonie, for having a kōrero. From Ngāti Maniapoto, we believe that we can learn a lot from other iwi, and Ngāti Awa is one of them. I'm just wondering if you could maybe share with us some of the learnings of the treaty settlement process from a Ngāti Awa perspective.
Koe, e te tuhine, nau I whakatau nei a tāu I tēnei ata. So our settlement process actually started directly after Raupatu, which was in 1867. We had petitions to the Crown, there was a Sim Commission, investigation, reporting, but in 1980 is probably when we started our contemporary, I suppose, approach to settlement. And at that time, a group of kaumātua within Ngāti Awa met, and they decided to have a collective claim. And at that time, it was called the bed, the pillow and the blanket, which was our maunga, pūtaiwaki, our confiscated lands in Whakatane and our confiscated lands in Kawerau. So our kaumātua set the foundation, I suppose, for the settlement, and that was in 1980, and it took us to 2005 to actually get our settlement legislation passed. So we had quite a lot of time to get to know ourselves again and get to know our stories and our history. But I think reflecting back to 1980, we had a lot of goodwill amongst the kaumātua. They saw us being collective as the way forward, and they really, because they agreed that everybody else sort of supported it and saw it as a way forward for us. So in that way, I think our settlement story is really based around their leadership and their whakaaro whānui, that we need to work together. Ngāti Awa is a small iwi, we don't have a lot of resources, and they also identified people at that time who would perform different roles. So I think their foundation actually is what set us up for success in one way. And some of them are still here today. We're very lucky to have at least two of those people who went to that original hui, who actually became fundamental and integral in our settlement story, which was Dr. Hirini Mead and Dr. Hohepa Mason.
That whole idea of leadership and the wisdom of the kaumātua leading, you will have seen lots of leadership models, but what would you pull out from the kaumātua leadership that has been absolutely continuous or till now?
I think a lot of it was based around tikanga, and so at that time, eruera, manuera, the hāhi ringatu, our own tikanga and kawa as an iwi, recognising that we have to be right with ourselves in a way to be able to do anything else outside of the iwi. So if we weren't right within Ngāti Awa, then the other things that we needed to do externally with the Crown or with other iwi wouldn't work. And I think their leadership was that they actually stood up and went forward and carried a unified message consistently, so that yes, the take that you've brought up is important, but at the moment we're on this waka and we're doing this mahi, and so they did that together. Women, the kuia and the kraua, I think that they stood up, and so people felt confidence behind them to support, and they empowered other people. So like I said, they identified different people at different times to do different mahi, who were doing other mahi but got pulled in to do this mahi. So, and a lot of that was based around, I think, their whakaaro whānui for the iwi, which was, we can do this together, but if we don't stay together, we're not going to be successful.
So in terms of today, and the experience that you've had now with the settlement and within an entity that's your own, that the leadership skill set that's required now, that balances the leadership that you've spoken about, what is the new type of leadership coming through to balance that of kaumātua?
I think, like most iwi, we have Ngāti awa uri who don't grow up in our rohe. They grow up in cities and towns and different countries even, and we experience what it's like to live in 2017 with technology, and so I think in that way that's a challenge for us, because we've got a lot of talented uri, but trying to create pathways for them to contribute or opportunities for them to contribute is something that, you know, is a challenge for us. That's something that we're trying to understand a bit more. I think the balancing between the tikanga and the kawa and the ao huri or the contemporary world, we struggle, well, not struggle with that, but I think it challenges us because we don't live in the old way anymore in a papakainga necessarily around the pā, and everybody mahitahi and has a shared garden, and some places they still do, but I think what they've left for us is that for us to be us today as Ngāti awa, we have to hang on to those things regardless of everything else that happens around us. Now, on the other hand, we've got a settlement, we're post-settlement, there's expectations from our uri about commercial returns, employment opportunities, workforce development, economic wealth creation, a whole range of things, looking after the taiao, and those things take resources, so we're not naive to think we just live in te ao kohatu and leave the business to itself. We know that we have to embrace that, but I think what might be emerging at the moment is there's a group that is really searching for tikanga and kawa and te reo and ngā hitori o Ngāti awa, and having a really deep understanding of that, and there's another group that might be more te ao Pākehā, commercial, and having a really deep understanding of that, but I'm not sure that we're creating synergy between those two parts.
It's a challenge. I think it's a challenge for all iwi, and when we think about the governance entity, for example, getting the balance right there so that you've got at least all those perspectives around the same table. I know that Ngāti awa were quite brave and courageous for looking at a governance entity that provided for those who live within the rohe and those who don't. Can you explain that a bit?
So we have, in our settlement legislation, we have 22 hapu, 2 of which are urban hapu. Ngāti awa ki Pōneke, Ngāti awa ki Tāmaki Makaurau. And from what I understand, the thinking was around that, how do we create connections, because this was before we had Facebook and YouTube and everything else, so it was around how do we keep people connected to who they are and still give them a voice and recognise the reality of living in the city. So they're not coming home to every tangihanga, or they're not able to come to every meeting at the pā on a Tuesday night because they live in Auckland or whatever it might be. So that's what I understand, is it was trying to give urban Ngāti awa people a voice, and somewhere also for them to go and be Ngāti awa. So in Tāmaki we have a marae, a mangere, but Ngāti awa ki Pōneke there's no marae, they don't have a physical marae, but it was about also creating an environment where they could be together and have whakawhanaungatanga, still recognise that they're connected to their iwi but living in the city. The other 20 marae are hapu that are represented on our board. Not all of them have physical marae, most of them do, and some of them are, have variable numbers, so some are quite big and some are quite small. So, and most recently there's been some kōrero about how do we distribute benefits. If you have a physical marae, you don't have a physical marae because there's costs that you may not have and all that kind of stuff. So we're sort of starting to talk about that. We haven't got to any sort of resolution about it, but it is I think what I desire to do is make every person benefit from the settlement. Now that's a really lofty goal. If you're living in Singapore and you're a Ngāti Awa person, how can you feel the settlement or the benefit of the settlement? But I think the urban hapu was sort of tried to design to do that, so that e kore tētahi waihoki I ki waho, because we recognise that there was that mass urbanisation of Māori as well, and that's the reality that people live in.
When the governance entity thinks about the development and the economic opportunities, is it mainly focused on what's happening in Rourou, or do you look further afield outside of Rourou or partner with other iwi or other entities? How does it work?
So what we have our runanga, which has got two subsidiaries. One is a charitable trust, which is basically designed to develop the people and the social, cultural benefits for Ngāti Awa. And we have a group holding company who have the mandate to be commercial in totality, and they have a statement of investment policy and stuff that might reflect our values, like not buying shares in an arms company or something like that. So we've made that distinction, and one of the reasons why is so that the commercial can focus on the commercial. The runanga still has input into what their statement of investment is and how they might do business in terms of our values and quadruple line reporting, but they are set up to be commercial. The runanga and the other subsidiary, our trust, can't operate in commercial competition. So we stick to, I suppose, in the runanga more about developing people and that sort of stuff. So the company pursues investment opportunities and does that with a wide range of stakeholders. And we see value, I suppose, in widening our thinking around collectivity across Māori o te motu, rather than just us within Ngāti Awa with ourselves, or with our land trusts or with neighbouring iwi. But that's how we're trying to diversify and be more engaged outside of just our own rohe, but also operating in a tikanga way, which is we're actually visitors in Auckland, or we're visitors in Palmerston North if we're building something there. So that's a tension sometimes. Yeah.
In terms of the reflections that you've had coming into this position that you hold, and you talked a lot about connection and trying to understand the people and create value and things like that. What is the approach with the iwi to do those types of things? Is it through a strategy, or do you have a particular way of working or engaging with the whānau to get that
Yeah. So in 2010, which is about 5 years after our settlement, we went through a process called Vision Ngāti Awa, ko Ngāti Awa te toke, and we went out to the people, and it was an aspirational visioning hui, and we had focus groups with different sections of Ngāti Awa, so rangatahi, mamas, a whole range of at the pās, at the marae, and just sort of said, what's your aspirations for Ngāti Awa in the future? We went through this. It was quite a long process. It probably took us about 3 months to get around everybody, and we had different ways of engaging, like social media, and what came back to us was actually the 3 priorities that came back were our identity, language and culture as Ngāti Awa, caring for the most vulnerable, being our kaumātua, and realising rangatahi potential. And those were the 3 priorities that came from the iwi. So when we developed Vision Ngāti Awa, we really thought about, what do we do with all this awesome stuff? Do we put it in a report that nobody ever reads, or how can we present this back? So what we did was we created 2 YouTube videos, so that you didn't have to be in whakatane to read the report. You didn't? And they just talk about our aspirations, like kaitiakitanga means this to me, our awa, our maunga, my language, my children. And we use that as a way to communicate back what we had heard in terms of our vision. But those 3 priorities we then pulled down into a strategic framework. So, this is when we get into like trying to understand it a bit more, I suppose. And from that, that's basically what we've developed all our strategies from. And so when we do mahi, or we're making an investment, or we want to set up a rangatahi leadership program, we connect everything right back through into the vision. And I think that's something that we can all put our hands on. It doesn't belong to a select few who understand the words more. It belongs to all of us, and it's a visual representation, so it's quite powerful in that way. If we don't have our language, then we don't have anything. And I think we all want the same thing. We want our iwi to be successful. We want our kids to be well educated and have options and choice. And, as women too, we might be a little bit easier to collaborate. Yeah. Because we want to be ourselves and we want to be our true selves. And one of the words that's going around is authentic selves. But
what's that?
What's that? I don't know how authentic that is, but I think we just want to be ourselves. Yeah.